Good morning and welcome to Morning Scoop for Thursday, January 20th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Notre Dame game is in 226 days, the game against Michigan in 311 days. It has been a busy month for the Buckeyes, both in terms of coaching changes and also on the recruiting trail. And of course, that also means in terms of figuring out what those coaching changes mean in terms of some of those recruits. So Buckeye Scoop's Alex Gleitman has been tracking down the answers to those questions about the impact of those new coaches. He joins me today. Alex, thanks for being here.
Of course, always a pleasure, Tom. Just got off with your normal co-host, Tony Gerdeman, doing my show. And, I told him I'd much rather spend time with him, but I was really lying, and I'd much rather spend time with you.
Well, I think we all know the thing that you say second is always the true thing. So I appreciate it. So, yes. So you can find if you were into listening to Tony Gerdeman talk about stuff, which, whatever, I'm not here to judge, but if you are, that will be on the Around the Oval podcast later on this week. But you and I, Alex, last week when we talked, we were talking about the very first calls and contacts that new offensive line coach Justin Frye was making. And then as we were recording that in the show, you were on your phone every once in a while looking down, and after we got off, I said, "Who are you texting with?" And you said, "Chase Basantis, a very top target, New Jersey native, offensive line target." He is someone that we saw over camp over the summer. We're pretty impressed with, and who you have talked to a bunch throughout this process because you and he are both New Jersey guys. So how has the change to Frye impacted his recruitment?
Yeah, I think it's generally a positive change. I would say maybe it's unchanged. Let's just say I think he had very high interest in Ohio State with Stud as the O-line coach. I think he has still very high interest in Ohio State with Justin Frye as the coach. I think right now the interest is unchanged. It's like, I liked Ohio State before. It's a bummer. I knew Coach Stud. I worked out with him in the summer. We had a good relationship. But, I get it. It's a business. And I've talked to Coach Frye. Frye actually, what's today? Wednesday, as we're recording this. Tuesday, Frye was in the school, Don Bosco in New Jersey, spoke to the head coach. I spoke to Chase after that. Visit went really well. Basantis was supposed to talk again with him tonight. So Frye's making a very concerted effort to build a relationship with Chase, which I think Chase really appreciates. And, just everything about Ohio State he likes. He likes Ryan Day. He likes the program. He likes the opportunity there. He loved everything he saw facility-wise, campus-wise when he went out to visit. So I don't think his interest has changed, but I actually think it's going to be a long-term benefit for Ohio State. Just the early work that Justin Frye is putting in to build a relationship, stay in contact, and make sure that Chase is comfortable with this change. And I think they're going to end up having a really close relationship, and that's going to help Ohio State big time at the end.
Now, you had updates on a total of 9 offensive linemen who have spoken with Frye, and then 2 who haven't, which is probably somewhat instructive on where various guys stand on their board right now. And you can find the full report at on BuckeyeScoop.com and Alex's ADEC column this week. But one of the other players who both you and Frye have talked to now is Peyton Kirkland. He is out of Central Florida. If you remember, I talked to Dominique Smith about him a number of times earlier this year, and maybe even going back to last year. He's out of Central Florida, just like Dom was. How did Peyton Kirkland and Frye connect, and what has that been like so far?
Yeah, they've had conversations, really just kind of initial introductory conversations. I don't think Frye has been out to the school yet, from my understanding. I think Alford, who's the area recruiter, Tony Alford, was down there just to check on Peyton, and he's been very involved, especially during the transition. I don't think that the change is necessarily doing anything negative for Ohio State, but I do think I personally had Ohio State as the favorite after Peyton visited in late November for the Michigan State game. And now I guess if I had to pick a favorite, it would be Ohio State, but I think Miami with Mario Cristobal is making a move. I think there's some other schools in the mix. I think that he's taking a longer look at. So I'm not as confident with Ohio State as I was previously with Peyton, but I think Frye will put in the work there and hopefully get them back in a good spot. The mom grew up, he grew up in Chicago, Peyton. They're a Midwest family. The mom grew up an Ohio State fan. She even posted from the visit, like this was like a dream come true for her. So you got mom in your corner. That's always a good thing. I think they just got to do the work. And get down there to see him and have Frye build the relationship and get him back up maybe in the spring for an unofficial and then an official maybe in the summer or early fall. I think there's going to be a little bit till a decision's made. So right now I would say arrow trending, pointing down as far as the stock on this one goes from maybe where it was in November, but still a winnable recruitment.
All right. And the last guy I was going to ask you about is someone that Frye saw in person recently, Luke Montgomery out of Findlay. How did that visit go? And then where do things stand with him right now?
So Luke actually, I know Stud has the rap of a lazy recruiter or, he didn't really recruit much, but he actually had a really good relationship with Luke Montgomery. So I don't think it's like detrimental to Ohio State. I think from talking to Luke, his dad, some other people around that recruitment, they understand this is a business. They understand that, Ryan Day is doing what's best for the program and they have full trust and belief. Luke told me, full trust and belief in Ryan Day to make the necessary moves to put his team in the best position to win national titles and put his players in the best position on and off the field. And so they've talked to Frye on the phone. The first day he was allowed to hit the road, he went to Luke Montgomery's school, went to his basketball game. Michigan happened to be there at the same time. But Justin Frye was there. And then they followed up with a Kevin Wilson visit on Sunday, 2 days later. On Saturday, Luke was actually in Ann Arbor for their junior day. So very interesting battle going on between Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame as well. But I think the early returns on Justin Frye are very positive. I think that they just want to build a relationship and see where it goes. They feel really good about Ohio State. They like Ryan Day. I think, you're from Ohio. Obviously, a lot of people root for Ohio State. They're in the Final Six. And so everything they like about Ohio State is still there. I think they just got to be comfortable with Justin Frye. So there will be a lot of calls, FaceTimes, things like that. I think they're planning their next visit to Ohio State is early March for a spring practice. So that will be really big in order to get the two FaceTime, sit down, hang out over a longer period of time. But I think in the end, Ohio State's going to win this one. I just think they need to make sure that they're just doing the right things, the things that they're supposed to be doing with this recruitment and make sure Luke feels comfortable with the new guy.
Yeah, that is the comfort in relationships. How many times have we said comfort in relationships? The key to recruiting. Well, you've got a new person you've got to get comfortable and build a relationship with. So it is going to take a little bit of time on some of those guys. Again, Alex had updates on 8 more offensive linemen besides the guys we've talked about here. You can find all of those in his ADEC column at Buckeye Scoop. On the other side of the ball, Jim Knowles. He's not someone who's necessarily known as the single greatest recruiter in the history of college football or anything, but he has been on the road as well. He just visited with a top linebacker target out of Louisiana, who was actually someone who was also up in Columbus last summer for camp as well. What is the latest on Jaden Osbury?
Yeah, Jaden's a top target. He was at Ohio State in the summer. A lot of people kind of wrote him off early because his dad played at LSU. His dad is like high up in the athletic department at LSU. He lives in Baton Rouge. So everyone's like, well, this kid's going to LSU. And I don't know how they feel about Brian Kelly. So I think that they need to get a feel for the new staff, but I know that this was not a done deal for LSU with the old staff. That is for sure. I don't think the dad loved the old staff all that much. So we'll see how the dad and Jaden feel about the new staff. Obviously it's easy to stay home. But from what I've heard, actually, Alabama and Ohio State are the 2 schools that probably lead this recruitment thus far. And I'm not going to reveal all of them, but Jaden gave me a nice collection of about 6 or 7 schools that are kind of standing out to him right now. Ohio State and Alabama and LSU are all amongst those. And I think, getting Jim Knowles there early was very much appreciated by Jaden. I think he's very excited about the type of defense that he runs and the role he could play in there. And he knows he's one of Ohio State's top priorities. So I think it's all good. They got to build a relationship. I think Jaden's hoping to get back in the spring and then maybe take an official visit either in the summer or in the fall. Again, probably a long way to go in this recruitment, but Ohio State is right there. And again, I know people are just saying he's going to end up at LSU, and he could. I'm not going to say he's not going to end up at LSU, but again, the kid is speaking very highly of Ohio State on and off the record. And from what I have heard from a couple of sources who are close to this one, Ohio State and Alabama have a lead over LSU right now. So That's where you need to be if you're Ohio State at this moment.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're in a personality battle with Brian Kelly, that's never a terrible place to be either. Generally speaking, of course. You mentioned Jim Knowles being, he is the linebackers he is a linebackers guy. He is sort of replacing Al Washington on this Ohio State staff in a lot of ways. He's calling the defense, but he's sort of taking Al Washington's spot. Al Washington was the linebackers coach last year. Now Al Washington's headed to Notre Dame. He's going to be the defensive line coach there. Kerry Coombs, also no longer at Ohio State. Now he's going to Cincinnati. He's going to be coaching the secondary there. Those are a couple guys who have spent years and years, several years at Ohio State building relationships with all these Ohio State recruits. And now they're going somewhere else and they're sort of taking those relationships with them. So how big of an impact do you see those guys having in terms of leveraging those existing relationships from their time at Ohio State to potentially bring new guys to the new programs?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think it will help Al that a lot of guys Ohio State recruits, Notre Dame recruits, and so maybe if they weren't as close with a Notre Dame coach as they were with Al or Larry Johnson or something like that, that helps them, right? At the end of the day, to me, it's Notre Dame and it's Ohio State, and they're two very different places. And I think your personality, like if you're going to go to Notre Dame, I don't think because of like some of the things they offer, whether that's the religion or just like that smaller, more intimate feel or the great alumni, like network and base that they have, like whatever it is that you feel attracted to about Notre Dame. I don't think Al Washington is going to like make you go there or not go there. If you're like a Notre Dame kid, you're probably going to end up at Notre Dame. Like Brennan Vernon, like doesn't really matter who's the D-line coach, like at Notre Dame or Ohio State. He was just, that's the type of kid who was just going to go to Notre Dame because it fit his personality better. Now there might be some kids like, everyone was worried about Sonny Styles flipping over because Al Washington like led his recruitment, but I don't see that happening. And I don't see a kid like Sonny Styles, if he was uncommitted, that being a difference in his decision either. I think he's looking much bigger picture than that. So with Al Washington, I think he's a really good recruiter. I think he connects to kids well. I think it was a good hire for Notre Dame, but I don't see that impacting Ohio State all that much. Kerry Coombs, it's interesting because as things currently stand, with Cincinnati being in a group of 5 conference and Ohio State being in the Big Ten, not many kids are going to pass up the opportunity to go to Ohio State to go to Cincinnati. It's just 99% of the time, it's not going to happen. Cincinnati in the Big 12 is an interesting thing to watch because that's Power 5 football, and they're going to have an equal chance every year to get to the college football playoff, and they're going to start to recruit at a higher level. Even though the Big 12 isn't the Big 12 that it is today without Texas and Oklahoma, it's still going to be the Big 12 and considered a Power 5. And while the committee might look at it a little lesser than one of the other conferences, they're still going to have a pathway in every single year, especially if you go undefeated. So that could be something to watch. I think there could be, I've talked to a couple of Ohio coaches who I disagree with them, but they think that Coombs could be a problem for Ohio State in-state to some extent, where he might be able to just convince some kids, come play early at Cincinnati, come be coached by me. And, instead of sitting the bench for 3 years at Ohio State, you'll have the opportunity at Cincinnati to come in day one and compete for time. So I don't think it's going to impact Ohio State too much, but even if it makes them work that much harder for some of these in-state kids or some kids from Detroit or whatever it is, that's going to be a little annoying. So, and I think Kerry's going to want to try to win some against Ohio State. So between the Big 12 and between just at least making them work a little harder, if nothing else, in state, I think I would say Kerry Coombs is going to have a bigger impact against Ohio State than Al Washington is, as weird as that sounds given where they are. But I don't think either is going to, as long as the guys Ohio State got recruit well, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, that is going to be a fascinating story to watch play out the next few years. Because as you said, I'm sure Kerry Coombs wouldn't mind beating Ohio State for a recruit here or there moving forward. That probably would not be something he would be terribly disappointed about. And the dynamics do change a little bit. They're still sort of sorting out the 12-team playoff and all that. And will the Big 12 champion get an automatic bid? Will all 5 of the 5 power conference teams get an automatic bid? But at least most years it's going to happen. And it sounds like the Big 10 and the ACC are both fighting for all 5 power conference teams to get champions to get a automatic bid to the playoffs. So that may happen. And that does change those dynamics just a little bit between Ohio State and Cincinnati. So Alex, thank you as always for joining me. And you can find Alex's work on our Ask the Insiders board at BuckeyesScoop.com. His ADEC column goes up every week. And we mentioned off the top of the show that Around the Oval podcast, always a great listen. I am a subscriber. I am a 5-star rater and reviewer. It is a fantastic show, even when Tony's on it. So make sure you subscribe to Around the Oval, wherever you listen to the Morning Scoop, wherever you listen to Buckeye Weekly, and wherever you listen to Gives in the Bank, Big Me Kickoff, all of our great shows. You can find them all. Just search Buckeye Scoop, and you can subscribe right there. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. And if you prefer to watch it on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. You can watch all of our shows there, player coach interviews, when we have camp videos, high school highlights, player coach interviews, all that good stuff, all at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.